In the following journey, you are going to meet me, us, and them. We dwell in a reality of borders that draw lines, erect fences, and set apart. These visible and those imagined borders shape the contemporary world. Is it at all possible to look beyond such a world and address it as nearness, where differences become mutual, where there are no divisions into center and periphery, into east and west? I will tell you a story that questions if being different, the other, is more than subjective experience, if it is somehow rooted in and within ourselves socially, politically, and culturally. But who are these others? How can a traveler coming from afar encounter these others? In search of their gazes, we set out on a journey to meet the Balkans. Our journey wanted to be a way of researching by being there and being with. Let me begin with the city where the outside world was neglected. During the 40 years of Enver Hoxha's communist rule, Albania was an isolated country. A program of its bunkerization meant defense against the outside foreign forces and influences. How can a traveler enter such a painful past that Albania went through? Once a prison, today museum, the Bunkart in Tirana immersed us into the old world from where people tried or dreamed to escape. Speaking of museum specialities and evoking the past times, we moved towards a city that visually wants to tell of the legacies of its past, Skopje. Some of you might know the tragic earthquake that hit Skopje one morning in summer 1963. More than 1,000 people were killed. The city's very essence was changed. Left in the half-ruined state, the old train station has become a memorial. Do you see the time the clock shows now? 5:17 a.m. is a frozen or an eternal moment. The clock has stopped at that very moment in time, recalling the exact time when the earthquake occurred. We also experienced this frozen time by observing the project known as Skopje 2014. It was meant to voice antique legacy and ethno-national Macedonian awareness through the architectural language of neoclassicism. Its purpose has been to craft a story of who the Macedonians are and who they are not, with embodied national values in bridges, government buildings, monuments, statues of Macedonian heroes, artists, writers, and Orthodox saints.
So the thing about Skopje 2014 actually is that the old government, which is now gone, the old conservative, actually quite nationalist government, was, from my point of view, was trying to build national identity, because Macedonia has this problem that its identity is contested from almost every neighboring state. So from Bulgaria, from Greece especially, from Serbia less, but also, and the Albanians, well, they have like a huge minority in the country itself.
Soundscapes of Albanian, Turkish, Macedonian, of the world tourist languages such as English or German, fill the daytime of the old bazaar, an old marketplace located in the eastern bank of the Vardar River. My memories of that old part of Skopje across the river stay freed from historical and cultural layers. They relate to spontaneous conversations that Darinka and I had with people on streets, who invited us to have Turkish tea or coffee with them, who shared with us their stories of life. They spoke about parental mixed marriages, home languages, migrations to Turkey, about the old times of togetherness during Yugoslavia, that now is a place of nostalgic longing. Similarly to the old bazaar, my eyes turned towards the interwoven antique, Byzantine and Ottoman legacies of Ohrid. On the lake of the same name, the city appeared as a time-lapse of the past empires and their cultures that can be taken as reasons for division. Does the sacred architecture itself, the Ali Pasha Mosque or the monastery of Saint Naum, want to be conflictual? Or does language define us? Many gazes of Albanian, Macedonian, Turkish, and same emotions: hope, joy, fear, guilt, anger.
In Ohrid, one of the most beautiful places we saw during the excursion, and I think it is actually the capital city that Macedonia would like to show to the world, because all these churches, this Macedonian heritage, the historical and cultural heritage, linguistic heritage, and like no visible minorities, and I think it's a really different city in comparison to Skopje, and like the face that Macedonia, the nowadays Macedonia, would like to show to the world.
Let me take you to another ancient Mediterranean town with cross-historical traces of Byzantine, Venetian and Ottoman times, Shkodra in Albania. During the walk, Mr. Ibrahim Agović, whom people know as Pipo, introduced a world of religious diversity among Albanians, among those belonging to Islam, the Catholic Church, and also those who started converting from Islam to Protestantism. Along the Shkodra lake, Mr. Pipo took us to the village of Zogaj, very near the Montenegrin border. We heard about the situation of the local Serbs who were discriminated against during communism in Albania, whose situation has improved, being however marked by the ongoing divides with the local Montenegrins. This village, however, lives differently in my memory, as a prayer sung by the local Hoja.
We were walking around and somebody before told us that there is a carpet manufactory in that village, but there was a lady going out of her on her balcony and like screaming carpets, carpets. So we went up to her and then she invited us to come into her house, which was actually the manufactory. And she also explained us the idea behind that manufactory, which was really interesting to me because she founded that manufactory to enable the women to work and to earn their own money and to prevent them from being forced to leave to cities and to other places for economical reasons.
Borderlands are like this work crafted by hand, full of twisted colors. Across borderland villages in Macedonia, Centar Župa and Lavci, several languages and religions encounter: Albanian, Macedonian and Turkish, Islam and Orthodoxy. Here, we face a phenomenon of self-disputed ethnic identity. Are the Macedonian-speaking Muslim minorities living in Center Župa and Lavci the so-called Torbesh? Discussed that they originate from Christian Slavs who converted to Islam during the Ottoman rule, today the Torbesh communities stay religiously self-invisible. As they declare themselves as Turks, it is the Turkish language that became an identity marker. With its tiny Macedonian-speaking community, the village of Dolna Gorica on the Albanian-Macedonian border appears as a complementary cultural landscape to the previous places.
What I recollect is Dolna Gorica especially, because it was, in the first place, was one of the few villages we visited which were not Muslim, but on the other, actually on the other side of the border, so in Macedonia, and not in Macedonia, not like the other ones in Macedonia and Muslim ones, but in Albania and the Macedonian village. So that was the first thing I was interested in, especially because, as you know, Albania has been quite a dictatorship, communist dictatorship, pretty closed to the outside world. And so I was actually at first glance surprised that they had minorities at all, because I didn't know about that. And the second thing was that I didn't know that they even supported this special minority in that area, and that they allowed like Macedonian as a second language.
Approaching the end of this journey, we stopped in one more village in the south of Albania, where we met fluid ethnic and religious identities again. Praying both at the local mosque and in church, appealing to the Orthodox saints, the self-perceived Serb Muslims in Reth Libovše testify to how religious belief systems mutually open, melt existing borders and blend. Such syncretism holds the community together stronger than the Serbian language itself, whose reviving shows a generational split. It is the older people who dream of coming back to the roots.
Hello, my name is Savi, or long name Sabaheta Durevic. I'm 17 years old and I'm in the second year of high school. I speak English, Italian. I have learned this language in my Albanian school, and I have learned Serbian language here in Serbian course.
Snežana Stanković, jam 43 vjeç, jetojmë në Reth Libovsh. Kemi hapur shkollën prej 6 vjetësh, shkollën serbe, dhe mësojmë kursin serbisht, vinë dhe shumë fëmijë të tjerë. Në shtëpi flasim gjuhë serbe, që të mësojnë dhe fëmijët më shumë, na bashkëshorti, se bashkëshorti e flet më shumë gjuhën, dhe njerëzit e tjerë flasin shqip.
In this vein, we met traces of crypto-Christianity in the town of Dibra, in between Macedonia and Albania, where converts from Christianity to Islam led a hidden life. Throughout the Ottoman times, they practiced rituals of their own Christian religion inwardly and secretly. Dwelling upon religious practices, in the end, let us turn our attention to the Balkan Islam itself. It is a mixture of diverse cultural and language groups, religious orders and movements. The Bektashism or Dervish order shows this internal diversity. A mystical movement that arose during the Ottoman times still shapes some parts of the Balkans: Albania, Kosovo, Macedonia, Serbia, Turkey. In Tetovo, it lives as a contested cultural space, being perceived as the violating other by the Islamic Sunni community of Macedonia.
Well, first of all, who are Bektashi? They are they call themselves like a minority in the minority. Well, in the Balkan, the Bektashi were really popular, actually, because they didn't care about languages or even about other religions. They were really tolerant and receptive to the other cultures, to other languages, and to other religion even, till now. But the problem is that in Macedonia, they are not recognized as a religion. So they are persecuted by the Islamic community of Macedonia.
Imagine we take the role of a reader who conceives a city as an open text that is being constantly rewritten and reread. In this way, the whole of the architecture, written walls and visualized religious, ethnic, national markers appear as scripts that narrate fields of many selves.
Through the whole journey, we got in touch with diverse linguistic landscapes, and especially in the cities, you could see that quite well. So, for example, in Skopje, we had at least 2 languages on signs that were, for example, set by the government, like official signs. And there you had Macedonian as well as Albanian language on the signs. And I think it is also room for conflicts. So, for example, when we went to Tetovo, which is close to the border to Kosovo, and which is considered to be the kind of center for Albanians in Macedonia, when we entered the city, there was a place sign on the side of the street, and you could read the Albanian version or the Albanian name, and it was visible, but the Macedonian version, for example, was crossed out. So that was very interesting, I think.
This was a story about the voiced and layered landscapes of the Balkans. My fear is that, as a group of tourists, we could violently break into the daily world of people we met and addressed disappeared, for they have welcomed travelers. To us, carrying different cultural backgrounds and ways of perceiving, this journey was not, as Clifford Geertz would say, getting their lives into our works, looking for information and results. Can the experience of coexisting diversities eliminate the idea of borders, at least those inner ones? Traveling through border spaces made me feel that I could carry mine, ours, and the voice of the others, where frontiers can evaporate, fusing the whole world into the close and known.